Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. MashaAllah, some well-intended people have shared some advice about du'as in Ramadan, and they have, with a good intention, trying to make people stick to what is well established from the Prophet ﷺ and following the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and not to do things that are dubious and not established from the Prophet ﷺ. Despite the good intentions, there are a number of fundamental errors in this in what's being shared. Number one, these hadiths, both the hadiths, so the hadiths, if we see them here in Abu Dawood mentions them, both hadiths, that when you break your fast, you say, ذهب الظمأ وابتلت العروق وثبت الأجر inshallah. I say that's the one dua that you make. And then Abu Dawood follows up with another dua, and he says that you say, Allahumma laka sumtu wa ala rizqika aftart. Right, these are both du'as that Abu Dawood quotes. So what is this book, Abu Dawood? Abu Dawood is one of the great imams of hadith, and he quotes hadiths that are sahih, i.e. we think the Prophet ﷺ said it, hasan, we think but with less surety, or da'if, there is a possibility the Prophet ﷺ said it, and the possibility the Prophet ﷺ didn't say it. And so when he's quoting a hadith and he's adding it into this book, this is an ikhtisar, this is a very, very small work. So he's saying these hadiths are useful, وَيُعْمَلْ بِهَا, and they are to be acted upon. And if we look at his, Abu Dawood, if you look at his letter to the people of Mecca, in which he describes what he's doing in the book, he says, ما كان في كتابي من حديث فيه وهن شديد فقد بينته. He says, any hadith that I mention in this book that has serious problems, I've explained. وفيه ما لا يصح وسنده, and in it there are hadiths that the chain of transmission is not sound. وما لم أذكر فيه شيئا فهو صالح. And he says, and those ahadith that may be sahih or hasan or even da'if, they may be weak, and I don't mention any particular problem with it, فهو صالح, it's good enough. It's good enough. وبعضها أصح من بعض. And so he says, there's a fundamental concept here. He's saying, these hadiths, in my judgment as an expert hadith, I'm the student of Imam Ahmad, and I'm my expert as an expert hadith scholar. These hadiths, if I don't mention anything wrong with them, then I'm trying to say that it's good enough. So Abu Dawood is telling us in this chapter here that these hadiths are either sahih, hasan or da'if, but they're good enough. If you are going to make dua, this is totally fine. This whole chapter is fine. Now in reality, what I'm saying, there's some hyperbole in it, because sometimes Abu Dawood will mention a hadith at the end of the chapter particularly, or mention, and it's obviously very weak, and he doesn't explain it. So that's not to be taken absolutely, but generally speaking, the fact that he puts these hadiths here in this way, he's telling us, please don't come and edit my book. Please don't come and change my book. I'm telling you that these hadiths are good enough. They're good enough for halal and haram, let alone dua. Okay, so the first point is that. Number two, when somebody comes along and says this hadith is hasan and this hadith is da'if, anybody who knows anything about hadith will know that they are mutadakhilan. That the lowest level, they are interpenetrative. The lowest level of da'if, the lowest level of hasan is the highest level of da'if. Right? It's a continuum, as Imam al-Dhahabi mentions in the Muqtida. It's a continuum from possible, more than likely, very likely, almost certain, etc. A continuum from da'if to hasan to sahih. And so when they're coming along and saying this is sahih or this is hasan and this is da'if, they are making these things as if it's a very clear line, but it's not. In reality, this hadith is stronger than this hadith, and that's why Imam Abu Dawood put it in this content. This is hasan, maybe weak, and this is weak, maybe hasan. Some scholars will come along and say this is weak and this is hasan. Some scholars will come along and say this is weak and this is hasan. But to say right and wrong, i.e. this is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and this is what you should do and this is not, this doesn't represent hadith methodology. It does not represent the book of Abu Dawood. It does not represent the methodology of the scholars in general, right? And so if we're going to say this dua and don't say this dua, that doesn't make any sense. Then nobody has said that. Abu Dawood is saying, yeah, these are all useful. They are salih. It's good enough for you to use. So that's totally wrong. And this is a methodology of certain 20th century scholars, that they break the hadith into right and wrong, where it's not like that. It's a continuum. The sunnah are formed like that. And to give an example, here is Adab al-Mufrad by Imam Bukhari. So this is not Sahih Bukhari by Imam Bukhari. This is Adab al-Mufrad by Imam Bukhari. And so notice here, he quotes a hadith, and he's talking about the general adab and sunnahs and how you should talk to people and how you should say things to people in a gentle way. He gives this example. He mentions a hadith, and he says how the Prophet ﷺ would try and avoid confronting people. And so somebody did something wrong. For example, they were wearing something with a certain color on it. That he said, why don't you go and tell him that he should change that? He didn't want to say it in his face. So this hadith is weak, arguably. So why did you put the hadith there? Why did you, Imam Bukhari, why did you tell me a hadith that is wrong? The answer is, the hadith is not wrong. The hadith is questionable. It's useful, but its utility is limited because it's questionable. Imam Bukhari knows there's a hadith, a narrator in it who's somewhat weak, and but it's just useful in that general concept. And so the methodology is wrong for a number of reasons. Number one, it's a dua. We already know it's supposed to make dua when you're breaking your fast, so it's fine. It's not shadid al-da'f, it's not very weak. Number three, we could argue that it's the other way around. One hadith is hasan, the other one is da'if, as certain scholars have pointed out. And the bigger picture is we have to take our methodology from the ulama themselves and from the traditional ulama themselves, not 20th century ulama. And so Abu Dawood, he has a structure. And when, for example, a certain scholar came along and said Sahih Abu Dawood and Da'if Abu Dawood, he's breaking that structure. That is not it has some use to it, but he's breaking the whole use of the book and the methodology of Imam Ahmad, of Imam Bukhari, of Imam Abu Dawood, and the Muhaddithin in general. So inshallah, I hope that makes sense. Please say both du'as. Both du'as are possible. The Prophet ﷺ said it. And the methodology, the use of that methodology in that way is totally wrong. May Allah forgive me if I made any mistakes, and may Allah forgive and reward the people who are trying to do a good thing and unfortunately making a mistake. وأقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. سبحان الله وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.